Hello everyone, welcome to VIZAG IAS Academy. 3 days back what happened? Houthi rebels in Yemen, they threatened Saudi Arabia and they clearly said that they are going to impose a maritime embargo or maritime blockage on Saudi Arabia. And with this threat, there is a great danger on the import and export of Saudi Arabia. And everyone knows that Saudi Arabia is one of the biggest exporter of the crude oil in the world. And if this embargo is effective, then we can see a lot of supply chain issues, oil price hike and inflation all over the world. That is why it has become very important for India. Why India? Because India imports more than 80% of its crude oil. So yes, if there are some issues happening here in Middle East, it is going to impact in India in a very bad way. So in this video, I'll be discussing about lot of things. I'll be discussing what is Bab-El-Mandeb, why this is important for us, India's relation with Bab-El-Mandeb, it means our trade relation basically, and all other things which are happening there. How can it impact the global trade and how it can impact the India's current energy scenario and the future energy scenario as well. Okay, so let's start the video. First of all, we need to understand this whole region from the perspective of geography. Okay, Middle East is always a hot topic, lot of things are going on there. In the world, we have major three choke points, three biggest choke points in the world. One is the Strait of Hormuz, which is in news, very well known. Another is Bab-El-Mandeb and another is Strait of Malacca. Strait of Malacca. This is Strait of Malacca. This is Bab-El-Mandeb. On the north side of Bab-El-Mandeb, there is Yemen, where Houthi rebels are controlling a large part of it, including the capital of Yemen. On the southern part, we have Djibouti and Eritrea. This is something that you need to for the exam. This is the Bab-El-Mandeb, a very narrow strait between Yemen in the north side and Eritrea and Djibouti on the southern side. This choke point is extremely important because around 10% of the global trade is actually happening through this Bab-El-Mandeb. And 12% of global crude oil, which is actually seaborne, is happening through Bab-El-Mandeb. Now you look at the scenario here. Another very crucial choke point that we have is Strait of Hormuz, which is already almost closed because of the Israel, USA and Iran war. And now Bab-El-Mandeb is also under threat because Houthi rebels threat this also. Now, this is Saudi Arabia. So earlier what used to happen, there is a tension between Strait of Hormuz. Saudi Arabia had an alternate route. Saudi Arabia did, in order to avoid the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, they made a pipeline. That pipeline starts from this point, but the Persian Gulf, there are some crude refineries and things there. So they had a pipeline up to this Red Sea. Here they have a port called Yanu port. So Saudi Arabia was tackling its problem via this pipeline. Now Houthi rebels basically threatened to block the Bab-El-Mandeb as well. Now Saudi Arabia is facing problem from Strait of Hormuz and Bab-El-Mandeb as well. Now natural question arises that why these Houthi rebels are creating problem for Saudi Arabia so much? Look, from 2015 in Yemen, civil war is going on. The day these Houthi rebels controlled large part of Yemen, Saudi Arabia is totally against them because these Houthi rebels are actually proxies of the Iran. I'll talk about that later on, but still from 2015, Saudi Arabia has controlled or Saudi Arabia is trying to control the trade or the movement to, up to Yemen. So now Yemen is saying that this is going to be an action eye for an eye. Eye for an eye. Look, this is totally opposite that India believes in the philosophy. India says eye for an eye will make the whole world blind. Houthi said no. We are going to follow this because Saudi Arabia is blocking us for so many years, around last 10 years. So now this is right time. I am going to blockade this Bab-El-Mandeb and we are going to bleed Saudi Arabia from both sides. Strait of Hormuz is almost closed already. Now we are going to close Bab-El-Mandeb. So this is one issue which is going on right now there. Now question arises, can Houthis do that? Can Houthis actually block or close Bab-El-Mandeb? Or can they control Bab-El-Mandeb? That is another question. If I tell you the one word answer, my answer would be no. Bab-El-Mandeb is usually open strait. Houthis don't have capacity to completely control it. But by using some threats, threats in the form of they can have anti-ship missiles. So whatever ships are actually going through the Bab-El-Mandeb, they can attack them. Or they can have like drone attacks also. There are so many examples that now and then, especially ships which are coming from which are related to America, UK, France or Israel. Houthis are continuously attacking them. So they can attack them with the drone also. Or they can have some mine also. Mines are also there. So yes, there are multiple ways through which these Houthi rebels can actually threaten the ships which are basically going through the Bab-El-Mandeb. They can't control it completely, but they can threaten. And this threat is sufficient for the danger. And this threat can actually disturb the global trade. So they don't need to control it 100%, but this threat will make the global supply chain dangerous and it will make the trade from this region actually quite expensive. I'll tell you how it will make it expensive. So Bab-El-Mandeb, if you see the strait, Bab-El-Mandeb, it's actually quite narrow. It is only 10 to 20 kilometer. Narrow strait, very narrow strait, but still it can have more than 10% of the global trade. So it's a very, very busy route, but still it is under the threat of these Houthi rebels. So that is something that you need to know. Now another question can be that what is the relation between Iran and the Houthi rebels? We'll come to other part of it as well. What is the relation? Look, very well we know that there is a rivalry between Iran and Saudi Arabia in the Middle East, that who is going to be the leader of the Middle East. So that sort of, it's a very old rivalry and it is part of the politics, but it is also part of the religion as well. Saudi Arabia is a Sunni Muslim country and Iran is largely a Shia Muslim country. So they have their own theological and the regional and the religious issue also. These Houthi rebels in Yemen, they follow the Zaidi branch of the Shia Islam as well. So naturally they have, relation or sync with Iran. And one more thing, because Iran has rivalry with Saudi Arabia and some other countries in the Middle East and Israel, USA and European countries. So in order to tackle that pressure from these powerful countries, Iran has started doing something very interesting and it is called axis of resistance. It is called axis of resistance. So what Iran does basically, Iran supports many other groups in the Middle East especially. So Iran supports Hezbollah. Okay. It supports Hezbollah in the Syria region and all that. It also supports Hamas in the Israel, Gaza and all that. And it also supports Houthi rebels. Iran has these pressure groups, these militia groups, and they can tackle basically threat to Iran. So these are low impact, basically these are low risk and the high impact like Hezbollah, Hamas, these Houthi rebels and some militia in Iraq. So this is how Iran has a relation with them. And Iran completely provides them training. Iran provides them weapons including drones or missiles and lot of logistic support and all that, training as well. So Iran fully supports the Houthi rebels. And in 2014, when Houthi rebels took over Yemen, even its capital, Iran was the biggest supporter. So there are a lot of issues going on right now. And now we know the reason. Because Strait of Hormuz is closed, right? And there are Israelis attacking continuously Hezbollah rebels there. Now, these experts are saying that Iran has directed these Houthi rebels to control Bab-El-Mandeb as well. Because Strait of Hormuz is already closed. So there is a lot of pressure on the global supply chain. Crude oil prices are also rising all over the world. So that is the leverage that Iran has. Now Iran wants to enhance its leverage. So it directed Houthi rebels to block or let's say to create some tension in the Bab-El-Mandeb region. That is why these things are there. Now it's a matter of concern for the global trade and especially India as well. How? Look what happens. This Bab-El-Mandeb is a very, very important choke point along with Hormuz and Malacca. So this Bab-El-Mandeb is a gateway of trade between Europe or the Mediterranean countries, some African countries and Asia. So this is a transition. This is basically a gateway of trade, and it connects this part of the world and this part of the world. So if something happens in Bab-El-Mandeb, if this trade is threatened because ships are going to enter into Gulf of Aden, Bab-El-Mandeb, Red Sea, and through Suez Canal, we enter into the Mediterranean and we deal with these countries, and we can go up to Rotterdam. So if you need to, let's say, come from Korea or China or India, you cross this route and you reach to the Europe. But if it is threatened, then it is problematic. Problematic in multiple ways actually. First thing, that Suez Canal or this route actually saves a lot of time. In a way, let's say you want to come to Rotterdam. You can completely come from there. Now, let's try to understand it from the global plus Indian perspective both, because both are combined. India is very crucial here, because for more than 80% of crude oil needs, we totally depend on the Middle East countries. Here, India's dependence on Saudi Arabia is going to be creating a lot of problem. Saudi Arabia accounts for around 7 to 8% of global oil to India. And Saudi Arabia is very vulnerable now. So that can create a lot of issues in India also. So it can lead to oil prices spike. And if oil prices are spiked, which will be impacting India especially and global obviously, but India especially, this oil price rise can lead to inflation. It can lead to inflation and so a lot of other things also. Now another thing is that, let's say you want to go from India to Rotterdam. So you simply take this route. No problem with that. Now because there are problems in Bab-El-Mandeb, so what these traders do, merchants do, they take alternate route. They had to take alternate route from Cape of Hope. Okay, so they need to take a new route. That new route is actually 3,500 to 4,000 nautical mile more than the previous route. Now it is going to take 10 to 14 days extra on one side. Now it will create a lot of problem. First, because now you are on the water for longer period of time, or even on one side. So if you say there is like 1 month, 25 to 1 month extra days that you need to spend. So what is going to happen now? Your ship is in the water for longer period of time. Your vessels are in the ocean for longer period of time. Then what happens? Look, these merchants who are engaged in the import and export, they do not own the ships. They take these ships on rent, which is called charter. It's like rent. So because now they need to spend more time in the water, so they need to pay more rent. Because they pay this rent on a daily basis. So now because they need to spend around 10 to 14 days on one side, so there is going to be high rise in the rent. Another thing, because of this time thing, now less and less vessels are available for the global supply. And if less vessels are there for the global supply, it can also increase overall shipping cost. So shipping cost will rise because of that. Now, it will also impact the manufacturing. Because of the more time which is taken by the ships, it can also impact the manufacturing. Because now supply is delayed, like raw material, supply is delayed. And if supply is delayed, it will also delay the manufacturing. If manufacturing is delayed, that is going to lead to the inflation. Because this cost, rise in the input cost or transportation cost, is definitely going to increase the price of the products. That is inflation. So not only in India, but it will also lead to global inflation. That is another thing. One more thing that you also need to remember from India's perspective. Because India depends for its global oil need, around 80% we depend on the import basically, and 7 to 8% we depend on Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia is going to be impacted here because of the Bab-El-Mandeb blockage. Now what is going to happen? It will lead to issue of trade of balance, or you can say current account deficit. Current account deficit. Definitely current account deficit, because of this delay oil prices are going to be more. So we need to pay that money in dollar. It will lead to current account deficit, and if current account deficit is increased, it will decrease the value of Indian rupee. So Indian rupee will weaken further, and if Indian rupee is weakened further, it can lead to more inflation in India. So there is going to be direct impact because of this. Another factor that you need to understand is insurance. Insurance. Look, if there are threats, there are risks, insurance automatically increases. And because now to trade through Bab-El-Mandeb will become more risky, these big insurance companies, they will charge more to the merchants. So merchants need to pay more insurance, and that more insurance, that money that they are going to pay extra is going to be reflected in the price of goods and services. So ultimately, because of this supply chain disturbance, because of this delay, because of this time, because of these tensions, it is going to lead inflation in goods and services. It is going to lead like decline in the value of currency, and it will also reduce our forex reserve, because now you need to pay higher amount for the same amount of the crude oil. This is going to be the issue. Now we have understood few things. Now we know the geography little bit. What is Bab-El-Mandeb, Strait of Hormuz, Red Sea, Suez Canal, Mediterranean? We should know little bit geography also. Now we also know what is Houthi rebels and why they are creating problem in Bab-El-Mandeb. They cannot completely control it, but they can threaten, and that threat is enough, because threat will send a message to the merchants or the vessels that it is going to be risky there. Now they will take the alternate route. This alternate through the Cape of Hope is actually going to create another issue, because it will take more time, because distance is increased now, and that more time is going to be reflected in the prices, which will lead to inflation. So these are the issues. India is a very big player there. If you look at the position of India and what India can do in this, and what is actually India doing, we need to understand that as well. Look, the threat in Bab-El-Mandeb is not new. Okay, it's not new. It's been there for like since 2014, like the civil war, after civil war. And there are multiple instances, 2017, 18, 22, 24, when Houthi rebels tried to attack many vessels there. Earlier, they attacked vessels especially connected to US, Israel, France or UK. But now, they specifically mentioned Saudi Arabia in their own statement. So now they are focused in Saudi Arabia. Now what India is doing here? If you look at the location of India, which is very, very crucial. Very, very crucial. So if we look at the international trade route, it goes like this. Location of India is very crucial. Not only location, but India is also third largest energy consumer in the world. Third largest consumer of the crude oil in the world. So not only location, but India is an economic engine as well in this global supply chain. Another factor, India has one of the biggest strength of the refineries also. So we refine lot of crude oil as well. And now it comes to location, India is in the exact position to make sure the security here. Even after 2018, along with the USA and UK, India has also basically placed around 30 vessels of Indian Navy there. There can be issue of these rebels also, there can be issue of piracy also. So India is already playing a very important role here, not only from the economic perspective, not only from the consumption perspective, but also from the security perspective. Because India is a transition. This part of the world is the provider of the energy source, which is crude oil and the gas. This part of the world is the manufacturer. And India lies in the middle of it. India is the consumer and India is also part of this supply chain. So India can ensure security to these vessels. And when it comes to free navigation all over the world, India plays a very, very important role. So this is something that you need to know about the role of India, this region, Houthi rebels, and so what India can do basically, because it's a threat to Indian vessels also, India can take 2 or 3 very important steps. First step is India needs to diversify. Look, there should always be a plan B and plan C. Now, what is our plan B and plan C? Earlier, Strait of Hormuz was blocked. India started taking it from the Russia. Now, if Bab-El-Mandeb is having some tension, India needs to have some other plan. We need to diversify of our source. Second is security. India needs to have more security measures in this particular part of the world. And third is India should have more strategic reserves. This is the part where India actually lacks. Japan, China, they have strategic reserves of the crude oil for even about 1 year or sometimes even more than 1 year. But India's strategic reserves cannot last beyond 2 months. That is one problem that India is facing. And now because world is getting more fragile and supply chain is not as assured as is used to be, because supply chain is now under threat, India needs to take some proactive steps here. We should have plan B, plan C or any other plan. So yes, we need to be engaged in the negotiations and we also need to focus on these things as well. So this is something that I wanted to discuss with you about this whole region. And I think now you have some understanding of this topic. Still, if you think something else about it, some suggestions, some feedback that you have, you can tell me in the comment section. Or if you like the explanation of it, and if you have some, basically, if I added some value in your life regarding this topic, you can like the video and share it as well. Thank you. Jai Hind.